Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and delegates, good morning. My name is Mia, and it is our distinct honor to welcome you to Abu Dhabi. We are here under the patronage of the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure for the 2023 International Student Energy Summit, the world's largest youth-led energy summit that serves as a beacon for the global energy discussion.
السيدات والسادة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، مندوبين الأعزاء، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمي شمى الظاهري ويشرفني أن أرحب بكم في العاصمة أبو ظبي. تحت رعاية وزارة الطاقة والبنية التحتية ينعقد مؤتمر الطاقة الطلابي الدولي لعام 2023 الذي يعد أكبر حدث للطاقة بقيادة الشباب في العالم. In a world where the only constant is change, we find ourselves riding with the tides of innovation and sustainability, with young leaders at the forefront of the climate movement and energy transition. Today, and for the next few days of the summit in COP28, with the guidance and support of the Student Energy Team and our 10 sponsors, we will transcend borders and boundaries of over 130 countries, cultural and linguistic differences of more than 650 young people, and unite under the banner of progress. A progress fueled by the collective pursuit of a brighter, cleaner, and more sustainable future.
CES is not just an assembly of minds. As we embark on this journey together, we must remember the energy transition is not just about power plants and solar panels. It is about the power of collaboration, the energy of innovation, and the force of collective intellect. From the intricacies of renewable technologies to the impact of global energy policy, we are all convened here to explore, exchange, and envision a more sustainable future through the energy transition.
Before we dive into our programming, we have to cover a few housekeeping items. In the case of an emergency, there are security guards and public safety officers stationed throughout the venue. They're highly trained in first aid, and in the unlikely event of an evacuation, they will direct you where to go. Please be advised that we're gathered at an institution of higher education. It is illegal under UAE law to smoke on campus. This includes all forms of smoking, including e-cigarettes. Please also remember to keep your phone on silent and no flash photography. And finally, please remember the name tags must be worn at all times within the venue. And now, without further ado, let us please welcome Helen Watts, the Executive Director of Student Energy, to the stage to make her welcome remarks.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends, and young leaders from around the world. It is my immense privilege to welcome you all as the Executive Director of Student Energy, and I must say it's really surreal to be in this room. At this moment, I can't see many of your faces because of the lights, but it is just such an amazing moment to actually have the summit coming to life in front of us right now. It is my immense privilege to welcome you to the opening of the 2023 International Student Energy Summit here at New York University, Abu Dhabi. And firstly, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to our host, New York University, Abu Dhabi, to the Student Energy Summit organizing team led by Benjamin and Mira, and to our generous sponsors and headline sponsor, Bezos Earth Fund, whose commitment to supporting young people with access to planning and decision-making spaces and with the real resources to ensure more equitable access to these spaces is critically important. The story of student energy is one that is still so relevant today as a testament to how great ideas are often started by a group of young people who are dreaming about a better and more inclusive world and just make it happen. It was 2009, and 3 students who were attending energy conferences themselves were frustrated at not only the lack of opportunities for young people in the energy space beyond highly technical roles, but more so a lack of meaningful youth engagement, where professionals and institutions valued their perspectives, their ideas, where they felt included and safe in spaces with inherent power dynamics. And as young people do, and I think so many in this room can relate to just by getting yourselves here, they took this situation into their own hands. They designed and ran the first International Student Energy Summit 14 years ago for hundreds of young people from around the world, demonstrating beyond a doubt that young people are not just capable of building movements, they are essential to leading them. The student energy movement then grew, not just in numbers, but in reach, in ways of creating and recognizing impact. We evolved our own theory of change for a just, equitable, and inclusive energy transition, recognizing that impact is not just measured by the number of people to attend an event, but in how long they are supported in their work, in the integration of perspectives and needs into solutions led by the people directly affected. And this is where the student energy story began to spider out. As programs developed, alumni networks grew, we heard and shared and inspired with the stories of young people making change happen. From youth coming to CES and being inspired by the power of youth gatherings, which sparked initiatives like the 7-Gen Indigenous Youth Energy Summit and the Student Energy Regional Meetings across Latin America. We hear stories of young people gathering teams, sharing knowledge, accessing startup funds, and developing distributed renewable energy systems in hard-to-reach areas, then leveraging our platform to get even more support to grow the impact of these projects. And young people are leading a clean cooking revolution, primed to take on the tried and tested small business model and drawn to the co-benefits you achieve through the gender, energy, climate nexus. There is a fight that exists in these stories. Young people fight every day for the recognition, inclusion, and the tangible resources to make our solutions come to life. There are 1.8 billion young people on the planet today, a quarter of the world's population. The decisions made today do not only affect our futures, they affect our current realities. We do not see that proportion playing out in boardrooms, in most governments, in organizational leadership, but student energy isn't going anywhere. And in fact, we're fighting harder, smarter, and more globally to get young people everything they need to lead solutions, the space to make change happen, access to meaningful, secure work, to take care of their own livelihoods, and platforms like the Student Energy Summit to build community, inspire each other, and share your stories. CES 2023 marks a catalytic moment where we've not only brought together the most diverse, leading-edge voices on energy and climate issues, but we will also be bringing all of CES 2023 to COP28 Dubai for our closing ceremonies. This marks the first time we are bringing CES to COP in response to the UNFCCC COP, in response to the urgent state of the climate crisis and its impacts being felt by everyone, but particularly the most climate vulnerable around the world. Our stories do not end on Friday as we head back home to our jobs, our projects, maybe on to negotiations in Dubai. Throughout the summit, you will have the opportunity to learn from experts and established leaders, but most importantly, from each other. The perspectives and experiences you bring is your greatest strength. I encourage each of you to engage fully, to challenge ideas, to build networks, and to develop real-world solutions to bring back into your work after the summit. It is our responsibility and our privilege to design just, inclusive, clean energy systems that respect and work in harmony with the land and empower community leadership. Make the most of this moment. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait for the 3 days ahead. With that, I am very delighted to hand it over to our incredible co-chairs of CES 2023, Benjamin and Mira.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته أصحاب السمو والمعالي والحضور الكريم. معاكم ميرا زايد الجلاف، ويشرفني اليوم أن أرحب بكم في مؤتمر الطاقة الطلبي 2023.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, delegates. My name is Benjamin, and I'm the co-chair of the Student Energy Summit 2023, together with Mira. We are honored to welcome all of you here today.
We would like to begin by expressing our gratitude to NYU Abu Dhabi, the host institution of the Student Energy Summit. Their support over the past 18 months has been instrumental in organizing the summit, and we would extend special thanks to the Vice Chancellor, Mariette Westerman, and the Director of Sustainability and Stewardship, Antonius, for their belief in this project since day one. Our journey on this day would not have been possible without the support of our partner, the Bezos Earth Fund. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Nicole Isipi, Director of Global Energy Innovation at the Bezos Earth Fund, whose early support was pivotal for the summit as she became our steadfast supporter from our very first conversation at COP27. And lastly, we would like to thank our parent organization, Student Energy, for bringing us all together, and special thanks to Helen Watts, Executive Director, and Grace Young, Events Manager, for their exceptional efforts.
We would like to again acknowledge the support of our patron, the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, that has supported the summit over the course of the past months. Would like to also thank a number of sponsors, strategic partners, and the NYU Abu Dhabi Arts Center that is hosting us today in this beautiful venue.
Next, we wish to extend our deepest gratitude to our high-level advisory board, and we warmly welcome the members present with us here today. Their guidance has been instrumental in developing and engaging an enriching agenda for the next 3 days. We are especially thankful for their willingness to lend their expertise to supporting a youth event, fostering a diverse and dynamic learning environment.
Last but not least, we would like to acknowledge our stellar organizing team. Can we please get some light on the audience? I would like to invite all of our team to stand up and wave to you. Can we get some light on the audience, please? Thank you. These 30 amazing people have put months of tireless effort into bringing the vision of reimagining the future into reality. This is the youngest and most diverse team of all Student Energy Summits, and we couldn't be more proud of what we have accomplished. You have 3 days of programming ahead of you, and we hope that you will fully benefit from what we prepared.
We are excited to share some key metrics and statistics that highlight the scale and diversity of SES 2023. It is the world's largest youth-led energy summit, and this year we are proud to host 650 delegates representing 130 different nationalities, with over 40% experiencing an international conference for the very first time. The summit serves as a vibrant platform for youth engagement, evidenced by the impressive participation in our SE competition and SES video contests. Moreover, SES 2023 is not just a forum for discussion, but a catalyst for tangible action and innovation. We are thrilled to welcome the launch of 40 youth-led projects at our Innovation Jam. Additionally, we will recognize and support groundbreaking ideas with 3 monetary awards for the winners.
SES 2023 continues the legacy of excellence of previous summits at ever greater scale. As we head into the summit, we have the honor to engage more than 120 speakers, including 10 ministers and heads of intergovernmental organizations. In terms of youth participation, we're excited for SES 2023 to be one of the most inclusive and accessible youth-led events ever. We are proud to provide full scholarships to almost 100 youth delegates and partial scholarships to all delegates who require it. Selecting the delegates was a tough choice, given that we received groundbreaking 4,700 applications. And it is a continuation of legacy of the UAE in promoting and championing youth empowerment. Our delegates hail from all corners of the world, and we implore you to take full advantage of this diversity. Look to your right, look to your left. The person next to you may be the future minister, and they are most definitely a change maker of today. We are here to reimagine the future, and we invite you to join us in this journey. Thank you. Now, without further ado, we are honored to invite His Excellency Minister Sohail bin Mohammed Al Mazrui, Minister of Energy and Infrastructure of the United Arab Emirates, to join us on the stage and deliver his ministerial remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, students from almost all over the world. Welcome to the United Arab Emirates and welcome to Abu Dhabi. We are so honored to have all of you as young people coming and participating at the largest, I would say, world gathering looking at the sustainability of planet Earth. You are coming from different countries, having different challenges, and believe me, there is no one solution that's gonna fit all of us. But all of us are living in the same planet. And we trust that the future is going to be in your hands. As young people, there is no other time other than this that the humanity have reached a conclusion that we need to act, and we need to act quickly. And this gathering represent the future and the hope that we can do better moving forward. We in the United Arab Emirates are young in the sense of a country, but super ambitious, I would say, in terms of the impact that we can do to the planet and where we live. And I think that gives me hope that many of you, when you go back to your countries and you will innovate during your academic life, and you will be impacting the future life in planet Earth. If you do the same as we did as generations before, you will not be on a good track to sustainability. Therefore, we need to change. And if we are talking about change in the energy, the first energy is youth. Because you're still young to aspire for a better future, and you have the knowledge that no other generation had before, and probably the next generation, your children, will have even a better access to knowledge. I'll tell you a little bit about our story here in the UAE and what we have done in the energy front. And trust me, most of that work came from the young people. I started as a minister 10 years ago, and I was in my early 40s. But from that time, another minister joined, was just freshly graduating from NYU, and then she got her master's degree and just coming back to work. And our government decided that we will choose the youngest minister in the world. And Minister Shamma al-Mazrou'i was joining the government, and she was an NYU student before. So trust me, when Benjamin said some of you are going to be ministers, maybe it's sooner than what you think. I'll give you a few advices that I think will or could contribute to your learnings. The first fact, go after facts, not emotions, when you're dealing with climate change and when you're dealing with energy and sustainability. The fact that we are consuming way more than what we need. If we look at the electricity sector, 40 years ago, back in 1980, we consumed around 1/4 or less of what we consume today. And that's only 40 years. And you can build on it on the transportation sector and other sectors as well. So assuming that we will continue the same consumption and we will not have problems of the sustainability and climate change, that's a very wishful thinking. So your generation need to change, and you need to be smarter than us in your consumption. Keeping in mind that there are more than 1 billion people does not have access to electricity. And that makes, there is no hat fits us all. Depends from where you are coming. Some of us need to consume less. Some of us requires to have energy. So we need also to be mindful of that fact. Can we fight one form of energy and take it away? And if we do that, we are going to solve the climate change? My advice is very difficult to do so. And don't fight the source, fight the problem. What is the problem? The problem is the emissions. So can we deal with the emissions with the existing various forms of energy that we have? We can. And you can find these technological solutions to deal with the emissions. And trust me, there is no point of just thinking that we will collect all of the CO2 in the earth and we are going to put it underground. That's very wishful thinking. We need to find ways of using carbon and oxygen. The combination of CO2 is carbon and oxygen. And we need to find ways of how can we convert it to something useful and integrate it into the different elements in the chemistry of the earth. And that's what we're trying to do. So in the UAE, we're producing oil, as you know, and we said we will be producing responsibly the cleanest barrel in the world. And when I say the cleanest, that means look at the science. How much CO2 goes out of a barrel of oil when you burn it? And how did you produce that barrel? If we can reduce the amount of CO2 associated with the production and at the same time take all of the emissions that comes from that barrel, that becomes a green barrel and a clean barrel. So that is possible. We just need to make it happen. Number two, accessing sun and wind and all available renewable energy. We need to do more. We're just at the beginning of this transformation toward cleaner forms of energy. That's why we are tripling our capacity by the year 2030, and we will do much, much more moving forward. The other elements is in the energy equation is the transportation and the industry. So how can we ensure that we are providing alternatives fuel to the industrial sector? Because billions of people are going to come. After 100 years, none of us are going to be here. Our children or grandchildren are going to be there. So how can we ensure that there is a future in alternative fuels to planet Earth? Hydrogen is very promising. So UAE will be producing around 1.4 million ton of hydrogen by the year 2031, and we will move to 15 million ton, and we will be, instead of exporting oil, we will be exporting hydrogen, and many other countries as well. So hydrogen have also a future in the energy mix. The other thing is transportation. So we need to also have different options. And there is a growth on the EV and the hybrid cars, and you will innovate God knows what. You're going to innovate something maybe different going on. Not hydrogen cell cars are available. Maybe we'll create something different that we don't know of. I was not imagining that we will have a car running on hydrogen and commercially viable until last week we opened the first station. Electricity is one of the major contributors to pollution. How can we, air conditioning is the challenge here, and some of you coming from a colder parts of the world where air heating is the challenge. It's promising that using heat, and using electricity, we can reduce the emissions. So we need to to create cooling or district cooling is possible, and we did that here in Abu Dhabi in Masdar. And last week we inaugurated the first plant that is going on geothermal, 2 wells that we drilled, getting the heat from earth and converting it to district cooling. So that's one innovative way that we have done. Hopefully we'll upscale it, and it can be applicable to different parts of the world. Maybe you can do that with heating in different parts of the world as well. So what do we need from you, and what does the world needs from you? As we are including you in the challenge. Now you are at the COP28, probably going to have the largest youth gathering ever in any COP before. So when you sit in the table with those people, you could be part of the problem or could be part of the solution. And we would like you, with your innovation, with your energy, to be part of the solution. And we're hopeful that with the support you get and access of knowledge, you will be changing some of the things that we couldn't change in our generation. And as I said, we are so honored to have all of you, and we are so encouraged to see your participation at the COP, representing your countries, and we look forward to taking those ideas and addressing them in different COPs in the future. But what's important is get the facts straight. Don't be emotional about dealing with the problem of sustainability. If I leave you with that advice, that will make you smarter in finding practical solutions that can deal with the challenge. It's a challenge of the whole humanity. It's not your personal challenge. We need to collaborate and we need to cooperate with each other if we're going to solve it. But small steps can lead us to a major transformation in the planet Earth, where we can see that if the future and the hope is in your hand. Thank you very much, and please enjoy your staying in Abu Dhabi, and thanks to the NYU, and we are very proud of this collaboration. Thanks to Jeff Bezos Earth Foundation, and we look forward to collaborate with you in the future. And again, welcome to Abu Dhabi and welcome to the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your inspiring words. We will now present a brief video of messages from world leaders to CES.
Students and friends, there has never been a more important time to empower and mobilize young people. I thank you all for your efforts to advance climate action and generating momentum for a just energy transition in your communities. We know that a 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway is possible, and we have never been better equipped with the financial and technological tools to secure it. It is impossible to deliver climate justice to the billions of people on the front lines of climate chaos without ending fossil fuel dependence. We must end fossil fuel subsidies and say no to new fossil fuel projects. We have the means to act, but we need to move faster than ever before. COP28 must deliver an honest, credible, and meaningful outcome that responds to the gaps in mitigation, finance, and adaptation that have been identified during the assessment phase of the global stocktake. I encourage you all to remain steadfast in calling for ambitious and credible outcomes at COP28 and beyond. Don't give up.
The UAE is proud to be hosting COP28 and is committed to making it the most inclusive COP ever. Urgent action is needed to protect our planet and deliver on the promises already made. No country is immune from climate change. Right here in the UAE, we are entering a new era of sustainability with the launch of this week of the bold new UAE Net Zero 2050 strategy, where the energy transition is a fundamental part of it. The strategy lays out a detailed action plan for us to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. We understand the critical role young people play in bringing about a more sustainable future for all, and we will make sure your voices are heard. The world needs to find ways to channel your overwhelming passion and drive for sustainability. You are the leaders of tomorrow and the future faces of global climate action. You have the power to create positive change by lowering emissions and waste in your daily lives. A new chapter can begin. Thank you for demonstrating your commitment to sustainability by coming here today. The time to act is now, and with your help, we can reimagine your future.
Welcome to the Student Energy Summit. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to see you here. My name is Dita and I am Director General for Energy of the European Commission, where I work to change our energy system for more secure, affordable and clean energy for all. And we need change. We need change to mitigate climate change, and we need change for global energy security. So I very much hope that you will join me in a global pledge for a tripling of renewable energy generation capacity and a doubling in energy efficiency improvements between now and 2030, and a pledge to significantly reduce methane emissions linked to the energy sector, but also to join me in work to help secure support and financing for everyone to make that change happen. I wish you a successful summit, and I hope to see you here at COP28. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to send this video message from London to you, the leaders of the energy transition. My message today is simple. The energy transition doesn't have an innovation problem. It doesn't even have a money problem. What it has is an inertia problem. As a global society, we are living in the best time in human history. We are full of opportunities that we have never had before, and which are stagnating because we have so much inertia in our global system. So, as leaders of the energy transition, you must break through this inertia. Be brave, take risks. Don't go along with things just because someone said you should or because that's the way things have always been done. Get off autopilot and question everything, including the solutions that are being proposed to the energy transition. Question everything, but hear out the answers. Raise your voices, but listen to what speaks back before raising them further. Always seek to build together rather than growing apart, because we will not break through inertia if we're too busy pointing fingers at each other. So you are the future, and the future is now. So how will you lead this energy transition now? I hope that this summit helps you explore that question, and I cannot wait to see what you do with the answer. Have a great conference.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, welcome to 2023 Student Energy Summit. Dear colleagues, when we look at the world today, we are facing many crises, and one of them is the climate crisis. Our numbers show, and the numbers of many institutions, that this year, 2023, will be the hottest year in the history. This year, we have seen many extreme weather events. Their frequency is increasing and their intensity is increasing. And this is mainly as a result of the energy sector. Fossil fuels are the key responsible culprits for the climate crisis we are facing today. But the good news is, when we look at the data, which we do at the IEA, a clean energy economy is also emerging. This year, of all the power plants built in the world, more than 80% is renewables. Electric cars going very fast. 3 years ago, only 3 years ago, 1 out of 25 cars sold in the world was electric. And this year, 1 out of 5 cars sold is electric. And 2030, at least 1 out of 2 cars sold will be electric. And we see in many other clean energy technologies a major rise. But this is not enough to avoid the climate crisis. We need much bigger momentum. I believe We need to change our current energy system for the better. Our current energy system is old, dirty, and obscure. In order to change this current energy system, inefficient, insecure, and dirty energy system, we need the energy of the youth. Only your energy, your commitment, your mobilization can change our existing old, obscure, and inefficient energy system. We count on you.
Hello, I'm Nigel Topping, the UN Climate Change High-Level Champion for COP26. I'd like to congratulate the organisers of the Student Energy Summit 2023 and welcome all the delegates for coming together. I'm delighted that you've chosen as your topic Reimagining the Future, because there's no doubt that at this COP more than ever our ability and our commitment to imagine a better future is going to be key, because we can only build a future that we can imagine, and what we imagine and the stories we tell about the future shape the actions we take in the present. It's also particularly important because we know that technical transformations happen exponentially, and so understanding that and tell the story of that and committing to that is key. We're seeing the evidence now increasingly of renewables and electric vehicles going exponential, but we need to get other industrial sectors like green hydrogen, green steel, green shipping, green aviation onto the same track. All of these sectors need more energy, more talent, and more collaboration. And that's why there's such a key role for young leaders. We need to drive that exponential change. We need to set those bold collaborative goals and then work together to deliver them, and work together to show that we can be amazing. So please be amazing, enjoy the event, and hopefully I'll see you later in the COP.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to welcome the Vice Chancellor of NYU Abu Dhabi, Marriott Westerman, to make her welcome remarks.
Sabah al-khair. Good morning, everyone. Let's do it again. Future leaders and energy. Leaders today, good morning. Everyone has arrived and overcoming jet lag as they may have it. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and especially and above all, great student leaders for the energy transition and the livable planet all of us humans and other living things are going to need. On behalf of New York University, Abu Dhabi, I am so pleased and thrilled and grateful to welcome you to our campus for the opening of the Student Energy Summit 2023. We've heard so much already from our great leaders here today, leaders from around the world who greeted you. We've heard from His Excellency Suhail Masroui, his clarion call to all of us to work together, and all of you, wishing you great good luck and Godspeed in your vital mission, the mission that is so critical to all of us on the planet, but that in essence has been handed to your generation, although we want to be here with you and help and remediate some of the problems that my generation created. Just one more thing before I say something about the summit. Your Excellency, I want to thank you so much for making the important connections in the many aspects of your portfolio. One remarkable element about the ministries here in the UAE is that they have constantly adjusted to the needs of our time and the future. And so the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure is also directly responsible for transportation and housing. We so often forget to connect all these elements of our collective and personal lives. And it's a great example of what can be done in this country. So this summit, your Student Energy Summit, has a vital theme: reimagining the future. And that theme alone makes clear that this summit is not just a nice gathering where you can come together from all the many countries you come from to meet minds and get to know each other. It really is a confluence of well over 600 visionary students from around the world who bring their hopes and their dreams and especially their intent to act. To act so that we can together reshape the energy landscape as is needed. And so the theme, Reimagine the Future, is in fact a call not just to reflect and to share knowledge, although we will do all of those things, it's a call to action. You, with your theme, have challenged us to envision a world where sustainability is not just a faraway concept for 2050, but is going to have to be a lived reality for all of us, sooner rather than later, really actually today. So what universities do so brilliantly in this regard, and which is why we're so happy that the Student Energy Summit is here, is to think and lead with innovation. And to work with young people, the present and future of the world, to forge a path together toward a future where environmental stewardship on a personal level and energy efficiency and sustainable sources of energy are intertwined in our daily lives, but also in our institutional and collective lives. NWA Abu Dhabi students and recent alumni, you've already heard a little bit about them, and you've heard from them, are truly a remarkable community. And they have been especially remarkable in organizing this summit. Their relentless hard work, their creative vision, and their leadership well before this summit got started in sustainable energy really give me great hope for the bright future of this country, the countries they come from, and for our planet. I think the summit is a shining example of their and all of your youthful capacity to lead and inspire collaborative action on climate. Helen was right, you're not here waiting, you're here doing the work. And I think it is wonderful to see this power of youth in driving significant change and pushing educational institutions like our own, NWA Abu Dhabi, to nurture and amplify these vital voices and bodies and people who are able to act together in force. So I want to congratulate our student leaders in particular. There are too many to mention. Of course, Benji and Mira have been carrying that torch for us. I want to congratulate them for bringing this event for the first time to the MENA region and especially to Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much for doing that. Please give them a gigantic hand. Mabruk. Mabruk. Thank you. I too want to express deep gratitude to my colleagues across our campus. I'm not talking about 10 people, a couple of dozen people, hundreds. It takes a village to organize an event like this. Thank you very much for supporting our students in the way that you always do. Now, of course, you all know that this is a critically important year with COP28 and the stocktake on Paris just a few days away. It is also therefore the year of sustainability across the UAE, and all of us have taken that wind in our sails from the country, from the leadership of the country, to do more than ever. At NWA Abu Dhabi, we consider ourselves not just a university of NYU, we are fully a part of New York University, the largest private university in the world. We are also an anchor institution for Abu Dhabi, for the UAE, and for the region. And so we take real pride in our partnerships and networks that we establish here and around the world. We can't do any of this alone. None of us can do any of it alone. So last year, when we established an MOU with the COP28 presidency of the UAE to come at that time, we worked with them also to establish the UAE's first ever Universities Climate Network. And the Universities Climate Network, founded here on this campus on October 4th last year, initially comprised 11 universities based in the country. And we did that to drive engagement among young people and connect the universities together in their research and community engagement and education in the lead up to COP28, so that we could support the goals of the country and the presidency for the stocktake event. It is a true honor for us at NWA Abu Dhabi to serve as the inaugural chairs of what I hope will be an everlasting network. It won't go away after COP28. And in just a few months, actually, it grew to 33 institutions of higher education, pulling together across all our campuses and our 7 beautiful emirates for this work. And this network, of which you will see a lot at COP28, has been vital in facilitating dialogues, workshops and public events, community gatherings, all geared to amplifying youth participation and bringing forth all the innovative ideas that live on our campuses and in our universities like the ones you come from here. And of course, we want to do that not only during COP28, but in the years to come. Our work will not stop at COP28. At NWA Abu Dhabi, as I hope you will see as you get to know our campus in the next few days, our unwavering commitment to a livable planet is now core to everything we do. And again, our student leaders over the years have pushed us to get there. We have today, we're a rare university that has a truly comprehensive climate action plan, a roadmap to a sustainable future that is guiding us every day now and every moment towards significant reductions in environmental impact and above all, as we've heard, in greenhouse gas emissions. The plan is directly aligned with the UAE's net zero by 2050 strategy, the first country in the region to make that commitment, and it is also connected to NYU's global commitment to carbon neutrality by that date. I think we can get there sooner, and we will try. We have a very clear and phased plan for doing this, with a truly holistic approach to sustainability, encompassing not only environmental measures, but also education and community engagement initiatives. I hope you get a taste of our research while you're here. Our Water Research Center, for example, is charting the future for much more energy efficient desalination, something the whole world is going to need. Fresh water is running out on the planet. We need desalination strategies, but we need them to be more energy efficient and less impactful on the environment than they've been. We have many other centers of this kind, including one of the jewels in our crown, the Arabian Center for Climate and Environmental Sciences, that uses what we can know of our desert and our Arabian Gulf environment to plan for the future and to adjust food practices, water use practices, nature preservation practices, atmospheric monitoring, and the like. All of these centers, and there are many more, provide practical solutions, pragmatic solutions that can resonate globally and also demonstrate to the world that universities have something to offer that's very practical today. People often forget that about universities. Academic research can directly contribute to solving the most pressing environmental and climate challenges of our time. So, as you get going now on these 3 transformative days ahead of you, let's be mindful that all of our discussions and actions are building blocks towards the last day of the event, which will proudly take place at COP28, as you've heard. And that marks the Student Energy Summit as an officially recognized event for the Conference of Parties 28. That too is a milestone, I think, for SCS. And this integration signifies the importance of your summit in the broader context of global climate action and sustainability efforts. You are not a fringe event. You are not a sideshow. You are core and center to what this COP28 is going to be about. So I want to thank all of you again. I want to thank you for your enthusiasm, for making the time to come here. We're thrilled that you're with us, and for all the participation you're going to offer us and the world in the days ahead. Together, you can do this, and we are here to do it with you. We want to help you reimagine and reshape the future of energy and the livable planet. It takes a village, as I've said, it takes a universe to get this great mission right. We are so thrilled that the Bezos Earth Fund stepped up almost immediately when our student leaders asked for support of the summit and became our headline sponsor for SES 2023. So it is a great pleasure now for me to welcome to the stage Nicole Iseppi, who is Managing Director for Global Energy Innovation at the Earth Fund, at the Bezos Earth Fund, and who is, as I hope she'll say, not at all a stranger to this region either. Thank you and have a fantastic Student Energy Summit.
Good morning. Distinguished guests, esteemed participants, and the incredible young visionaries of the Global Student Energy Summit for 2023. I am profoundly honoured to stand before you today as we embark on an extraordinary journey together. A journey that transcends geographical boundaries, cultural differences, and generational divides. As we gather here for the opening of the 2023 Global Student Energy Summit, we are not here merely to convene for an event. We are assembling for a transformative movement, one that amplifies the resounding voices of our young youth in the pursuit of an equitable and sustainable energy future. The Bezos Earth Fund is immensely proud to join hands with SES 23, a collaboration that stands as a testament to our shared commitment to fostering innovation, driving systematic changes, and amplifying the voices of our youth. Our partnership is rooted in a common vision to unlock the boundless potential of our young leaders, that's you in the audience and beyond, to spark transformative solutions and to ensure that no one is left behind in the journey towards a sustainable energy transition. Today, the world grapples with the urgent challenges of a climate crisis, one that resonates as the most pressing intergenerational injustice of our time. Now let's consider this. It is important to look at the facts. The International Energy Agency, otherwise known as IEA, net zero emission scenario, over 30 million jobs, they say, will be created in low carbon technologies by 2030. However, with the good work of the Student Energy Summit and their recent Energy Transition Skills Report, which you all contributed to and others, it conducted in collaboration with Ørsted, indicates that almost 50% of the survey's results, that's over 2,000 youth respondents, lack awareness about those existing job opportunities within the energy sector. It is within this complex landscape that the power and the potential of young leaders like you emerge as a beacon of hope, a force that drives innovative change within the global energy sector. Youth envision a future that transcends boundaries, one that demands transformative shifts in our approach towards energy sustainability. You dream big, you take action, and demand transformative change. Recognising the inherent potential, it becomes our collective responsibility to dismantle the structural barriers hindering the meaningful engagement of our youth. At the Bezos Earth Fund, we embark on this mission by investing in the systematic changes necessary to accelerate the global energy transition, ensuring equity and justice for all. Our commitment with SES 23 is to engage and empower youth from diverse backgrounds, nurturing their development and facilitating enduring connections within the energy global sphere. As we delve into this momentous summit, let us heed the words of an activist but also Nobel Peace Prize winner, Kailash Satyarthi, who, if you don't mind, I will borrow his words. The power of a youth is the commonwealth for the entire world. Indeed, the faces of young people mirror our past, present, and future. It is our obligation to recognise, support, and amplify your voices for a shared future that allows everyone to thrive. The future belongs to you, the youth. Our duty lies in ensuring you have the freedom, resources, and the opportunities to shape it. It is an absolute pleasure, both myself personally and on behalf of the Bezos Earth team, to be a collaborator and a partner with SES 23. We thank you, we wish you all the best. We're excited to reimagine the future with you and execute those solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, for your opening remarks. This now marks the end of the high-level opening ceremony. Thank you again to His Excellency Sohail Al-Mazari for joining us this morning. It is now time for us to transition to our first leadership dialogue. Building Bridges, Women Empowerment and Collaborative Approaches for a Just Transition. This session will bring to the fore the principles of just and equitable energy transition, highlighting the role of women empowerment in fostering inclusivity and harnessing the collective power of diverse perspectives to drive transformative and just changes in the energy sector. I would now like to invite our esteemed guests to the stage. Gary Singh, Deputy Director General of IRENA, and Larissa Crawford, Founder and Managing Director of Future Ancestors Services. This session will be moderated by Grace Young, the Mentorship and Events Manager at Student Energy.
And welcome to the 2023 Student Energy Summit. It's really an honor to be here with all of you today, and quite a surreal moment to share with everybody seated in the audience and all of our distinguished guests. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural plenary session. My name is Grace Young, and I am Student Energy's Mentorship and Events Manager. Before we dive in, please allow me to take a few moments to provide a few opening remarks for our topic today. Today's focus is on women's empowerment in the context of a just energy transition. We know that women are underrepresented across the energy space, but what I find quite interesting is that when we look at Student Energy's youth network of 50,000 young professionals and energy leaders all over the world, we actually see quite an equal gender split. What's concerning is that when we look at the energy sector more broadly, this number decreases quite significantly to about 20 or 30% depending on the sector. And it gets even smaller when we only look at executive and C-suite roles. There's an apparent gap for young women to advance in their careers, and we know that we need sustainable, long-term policy and systemic change to ensure that young women are empowered with the supports and resources that they need to be equally represented across all levels of the sector. When we look at the opportunities that do exist for young women, we have to acknowledge that they're often inaccessible, specifically to young women from rural or marginalized communities. So we can't just be looking at gender, talking about solutions. We have to ensure that we are taking an intersectional approach so that the social and economic benefits of the energy transition are equally distributed and reach women all over the world. Of course, we know that the data shows how women are disproportionately impacted by climate and energy issues. This is essential framing for any conversation about energy solutions, and we need to center young women and underrepresented women as the critical stakeholders, leaders, decision makers, and entrepreneurs and innovators of this energy transition that we're all collaborating towards. So what does this kind of approach look like? Well, the wealth of knowledge between the two individuals to my left is nothing short of extraordinary. I'm very excited for all of you to be inspired by what they have to say, and so without further ado, let's dive right in. My first question will be addressed at you, Gauri. You have led India's federal framework to drive solar development across the entire nation. And at the state level, you played a pivotal role in rural development strategies that would improve the livelihoods of 2 million women across the state. Based on your experience working in policy and government, could you tell us a bit about strategies that can be employed to ensure that the benefits of the energy transition reach women in both rural and urban communities?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be at NYU AD and be talking to all of you. So, you know, when this phrase came into being and, you know, people started talking about just energy transition. Initially, it was all about just energy transition for communities and people who are involved in the coal sector. But I'm glad that now when we talk about just energy transition, we have a much broader spectrum at play, and we are actually looking at how the impact of energy transition, which as a matter of fact, all of you are going to be a part of, is going to impact those communities that you know, have been for a long time just receivers of policy changes, of strategies that countries have been taking forward. So a lot of time we actually spend and government spend looking at large utility scale projects and how, you know, how we will move away from fossil fuels, which is what the current system is dominated by, into more renewable energy based solutions, into getting our systems more future ready with much more energy efficiency built into them. But not enough time, I'm afraid, gets spent on looking at how it will impact some of the communities that may not even have access to the grid. And that, I think, is a very fundamental part of the discussion when we speak about just energy transition, because you're not talking about energy transition happening for only those people who get impacted by and who have access to the grid, because that's great, because they'll also have to, you know, change their own behavior. But what happens to those communities that are further removed? And in a lot of developing countries, one of the very, you know, it's a conundrum that you have a lot of the governments talking about deploying more renewable energy into the grid, but their grid itself is not so widespread that it can reach to the various communities that are in the more peri-urban and in the rural areas. So I think policies need to have that intentionality of looking at those communities and how they will be impacted, because right now what you see is that a lot of the communities that don't have access to the grid are actually using diesel. And the women, in fact, are much more, I would say, vulnerable, because along with this whole phenomena of energy transition and the discussion on energy transition, there's another huge migration that's happening. That's the rural-urban migration, which means that you have the men folk in most of the developing countries migrate in search of jobs to the urban centers. And who gets left behind? It's the women, it's the children, and it's the elderly. And then it really falls upon the women to not just make sure that they have the setup for getting their agriculture practices right and the post-harvesting and all of that, but also take care of the health and the education of the children and the elderly that are left behind. So it's about these issues that we need to think about, and which is why the energy transition policies must look at how energy transition has to happen from diesel-based solutions that are currently being used for powering, pumping solutions to harvesting, post-harvesting solutions, and how do we convert those into renewable energy solutions, which, by the way, exist, and also to make sure that they don't get left behind in this big transition that all of us are going to be a part of.
Thank you so much. There's quite a lot that I'd love to pick up on there, and I think the key point of intentionality and reframing how women, and especially vulnerable women and elderly and children, are often seen as the beneficiaries of policymaking and strategies. And so thinking about how we can really start to center those women and have those women lead policy implementation and ensure that we're really taking that community-centric approach. And there was also quite a few other things that you've mentioned that make me really excited that this is our first plenary session, because you're teeing us up quite nicely for some conversations that I know are going to follow. And Larissa, now over to you. Your work at Future Ancestors sits at this intersection of decolonization, climate justice, accessibility, and racial justice. Of course, this is deeply entangled with gender justice and the energy transition. And you also have extensive experience as a policy advisor. Based on your experience and your work, when we're talking about women's empowerment within this context of a just transition, could you tell us a bit how we can ensure strategies and efforts are truly intersectional so that these benefits that we're starting to discuss are reaching women that are facing compounding and additional systemic barriers to opportunity?
Yeah, Danste, Larissa Crawford, Deshne Gashin, Calgary New Kempi Mi Family Benetinguation Pi Jamaica New Gun. Bonjour, je m'appelle Larissa Crawford. J'ai une ascendance métisse de Benetinguation et une ascendance afro-caribéenne de Jamaïque. Hey, I'm Larissa Crawford. I carry Métis ancestry from Penetanguishene, Ontario, and Afro-Caribbean ancestry from Jamaica. And this is going to be important for kind of what I have to share in response. To be quite frank, I've been working in energy policy spaces, and the topic of a just transition, I haven't seen it radicalized in a way that excites me in a lot of ways. And a big reason for that is because we're skirting around the reasons why we need to do this just transition. And if we aren't confronting that head on, our pathways forward are going to be performative, and they will not be able to truly establish the just and sustainable futures a just energy transition needs to bridge us to. And so I want to talk about that today. I'm going to share about that. I'm going to take some time to do this. So I have an expertise in restorative practice and restorative justice. I'm a facilitator, circle keeper, and I've studied particularly the indigenous roots of restorative practice and justice in a global context. And what's very exciting to me about it is that consistent throughout restorative practices I've seen around the world, there's a very common characteristic, and that is that we need to acknowledge harm in the early stages of reconciling relationships for pathways forward. Now, if we do that with the energy transition space, we really need to acknowledge colonialism. And I've also developed an expertise in colonialism if I'm to acknowledge harm. And so I want to talk about colonialism for a second. So just a raise of hands, how many of you are familiar with the term colonialism? Show of hands. Sweet, okay, so a pretty basic, or a pretty general understanding, great. So there's 4 characteristics with colonialism. Common characteristics that you're gonna see around the world in colonial states and colonial societies. You're going to see political and legal domination over an alien society by the colonial entity. You're going to see relations of political and economic dependence. So we need to decimate that alien society's society and for it to be dependent on the institutions of the colonial state. And then the last 2 are the ones I'm going to talk about. Exploitation between imperial and, in a growing contemporary context, capitalistic power and the colonies, and racial and cultural inequality. So, exploitation, let's start there. Why we need to do this just transition in the first place? Well, I'm from Canada, what is currently Canada. We have 5% of the global oil and gas production, and I'm actually from Alberta, and we have the world's 3rd largest oil and gas reserve in the world. And so this topic is very top of mind, and it's actually why I'm wearing a red dress today, because there are deep correlations in what is currently Canada between energy development and missing and murdered Indigenous women and people. If you're interested in learning more, Amnesty International, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, provides statistical data on this correlation. Now, Canada was created for God, glory, and gold as a colonial state. It was created for the purpose of natural resource extraction and control. And our states and institutions in what is currently Canada were created to facilitate that process. It was created to facilitate that process. And so when we think of these realities and how they exist today, we need to confront that reality for sure. How many of our institutions were born from the need of displacing Indigenous peoples from their lands for natural resources extraction and control? And when I think about how they did that, I think about the transatlantic slave trade. Stolen Indigenous peoples from across Africa were brought to what is currently Canada, and North Americas, South Americas. My ancestors, we were brought to stolen Indigenous lands for the purpose of that natural resource extraction and control, and injecting those resources into a growing imperialist and eventually capitalist global economy. Now, there is a reason for that. And when we think of the just transition, when we think of why we have to do that, we have to go that far back. We need to acknowledge that, because the institutions, the ideologies that we're navigating in pursuit of a just energy transition have been born from that reality. And so, when we think of how that was made possible, truths were normalized. It was made true that it was okay to steal my ancestors from Africa and bring them to stolen Indigenous lands to murder more of my ancestors in the pursuit of that natural resource extraction and control. And a lot of different mechanisms were used to make that true. We had phrenology, so the study of skulls, and race science. Race science was used to justify that it's okay to do it to these people. They aren't actually people, they're savages. They're uncivilized, they're in need of our colonization. They aren't using these natural resources in a way that's profitable, in a way that's civilized. They need us, and we're going to impose that by force. And we see these realities around the world. This may ring true for your people, where you come from. So many mechanisms were used to justify the transatlantic slave trade, which when we look back on it, we see that was awful, for the most part. And for the most part, as in most people recognize that that was awful. But it was justified because of economic development, because of capitalist profit, and because it was okay to do this to certain people. And if they self-defended, they would be named terrorists. They would be named savages. They would be named as an infestation to be controlled because they are preventing our economic growth and development. And so when we think of a just transition, we need to acknowledge that this is happening today. We need to acknowledge that it isn't just in the past that things like this happened. We need to confront that in our minds, in our institutional truths, that mechanisms are at play to justify the treatment of people, where some people have human rights, some people have a right to self-defend, some people have rights to land and existence and life, and others don't. If I think of my people in what is currently Canada, we were separated from our lands. We were not deemed to be equal to other humans. And so my ancestors, my families, were stolen from their communities and put into residential schools. Over 150,000 people, Indigenous people in what's currently Canada, between 1880 and 1996. I was born in 1995, I'm 28. And I was still alive when residential schools were in existence in Canada. Thousands and thousands of Indigenous children died in these schools and continue to die as a result of the living legacies and intergenerational trauma of these schools. And these schools were implemented because my people were deemed a threat to natural resource extraction and control. When we think of what's happening to over 15,000 dead Palestinians, over 6,500 of them children, where we have access to digitized archives in real time, where we can witness this, where we can instill fear in attendance here today, Palestinian attendants here today, for not wearing their regalia because they're afraid of how you will react. This is a reality that we're navigating right now. This is real time, and we are navigating this right now. We are navigating the dehumanization of an entire people, and we are expected to ignore the fact that this past month, Israel awarded oil and gas exploration licenses to over 6 oil and gas companies in the midst of an active genocide. Where is that outrage? Well, it's silenced. The Congo, the Sudan, Hawaii, Colombia, Brazil, we're seeing active, ongoing genocides that are deeply tied to natural resource extraction and control, that are deeply tied to the fossil fuel industry. This panel is called Building Bridges, Building Our Futures. I am not interested in building to a rotting foundation that is destabilized by an understanding of who has a right to existence and who does not, contingent on their facilitating or hindering role to the profit of natural resource extraction and control. I'm not interested in building a bridge to that foundation. And so as I wrap up, when I come back to this idea of making a just transition accessible to the most marginalized, the most vulnerable communities, well, it starts with confronting our deepest held ideological and institutional truths. We need to see ourselves in the way that we can look back at the transatlantic slave trade and see how that was inhumane, how that was wrong. And I truly believe that a just energy transition can happen. I truly believe that. I truly believe that we can divest from fossil fuels. I truly believe that we can exist in a world without genocide. Now, that sounds very naive of me to say, and I know that you can just list off the top of your head all the reasons why that couldn't happen or why that shouldn't happen. But my last point, when I hear that and when I struggle to hold on to that hope of a just energy transition, I think of my ancestors, stolen from Western Africa and brought to Jamaica at the Belfield Sugar Plantation that was owned by Scotsman John Innes Crawford. My last name, Crawford, that's a slave master name. I carry a slave master name. I carry a brand that was used to name my ancestors as property. My ancestors survived genocide. My ancestors survived, and they survived because of a hope, because of a dream, because they could see the impossible and they believed it. And they worked every day to achieve that dream and to make that dream a reality where I can sit here today. And so this idea of dreaming, this idea of seeing a reality where there has been a just energy transition, that is radical, that is revolutionary. That is valid, and that's the way I honor my ancestors and everything they survived, and that's the way I'm honoring the people who are going through those kind of atrocities today. So as we continue with this panel, as we continue with this conversation and this space, I really, really want to see these conversations happening. I really want us to be and lean into the discomfort and to think of those that we're responsible to, not just today, not just in the past, but for our futures as well.
Wow, that was incredibly powerful, and thank you so much for sharing your remarks with us. I think between what we've heard from both of you already, we've been kind of prompted to think about the people who are going to be impacted by the policies and implementations that we're talking about today, that are going to be decided upon in the next few weeks, and then also thinking about the future generations and the institutions and the legacies that have kind of set all of the foundations for the policies and decisions and the progress that we're making. So we're all here together for this summit from every corner of the world in the spirit of collaboration and community. And I think what we've heard so far has really set the tone for how important that collaboration and these challenging and real conversations are if we're going to progress towards a just energy transition. And so, in the spirit of looking forward and collaboration, I have one more question for each of our panelists. And we'll go in the reverse order this time, if that's all right. The last time I saw Larissa speak was actually when I was a delegate at the 2019 Student Energy Summit in London, in the UK. And I mean, I'm still here, so clearly something stuck around. So in the true spirit of why we're all here and the Student Energy Summit, as we come together this week to collaborate, build long-lasting relationships. I know Benji said this earlier, but you might be sitting next to a future minister. How can we establish a stronger network of women and allies working on energy solutions to ensure that women are valued as critical stakeholders of the transition and not just beneficiaries?
Yeah, I love this question. And yeah, Grace, I remember meeting you in London. I actually deeply love this organization. I've worked on multiple different planes with Student Energy, and they truly are a leader in what I hope to see in our energy futures. And so thank you for acknowledging that. In terms of the practicality of everything, I have, maybe I'll respond at a system level and then at an individual level that you could leave and do today. So at a systems level, I would love to see more co-management regimes take place between our institutional states and Indigenous peoples. And it's really interesting, if we look to the conservation sector in what is currently Canada, and actually if we look up to the north, to our friends in the north, where we learn so much, and we can learn so much about policy, procedure, approaches, and energy transition when we go up north, especially because there's this scarcity of resources and this requirement to collaborate, because if you don't, you're not going to get food or water to your community through the hard season. And so amazing innovation is happening in the north, and particularly in Yukon, in what is currently Canada. There's a co-management regime that was born out of harm. First Nations in Yukon experienced a very explicit cultural genocide when removed from their traditional territories in the interest of conservation. And after it was recognized that that was wrong, they were invited back, but they didn't go back. And so there was a process, a restorative process that took place between the government and the communities to restore relationships. And what they ended up developing after a long and difficult and imperfect process was a co-management regime where we see the Indigenous communities actively leading the management of that park. Now, what was really interesting and what came out of that was cultural reintegration as an ecological marker of health and environmental well-being. That is so exciting, and that is incredibly innovative and effective in benefiting Earth and the ecosystems that everyone was setting out to do. And so, if you're interested in learning more, Healing Broken Connections, Google that, Yukon, Canada, and you'll find a few documents that really demonstrate what that co-management regime looked like. And I work a lot in energy. I work a lot actually with Canada's federal ministries, Natural Resource Extraction and Control, and Environment and Climate Change Canada. We work with these clients, and this is a process that we're supporting them in doing, is understanding how they can prepare themselves to be in relationship with communities in a way where they actually have leadership. And so I really encourage you, if you're doing that kind of systems work, to look to that as a key study and a really exciting place of innovation that could be applied to the energy transition. And then secondly, when it comes to your roles in the workplaces, your roles at your organizations, I love to think of this idea of respect and using the language as respect to assert your whole self in your role in this energy transition. So one of my favorite conversations to have is, what do you need to feel respected? Because so often, especially as marginalized people, as we go into energy spaces, we're often not respected by default. These institutions, these organizations, these minds are not prepared to respect us by default. And so we have to take steps in order to support them in understanding how to respect us. And so at my organization, and we support many people, including most of our clients in the energy sector, we support them by a couple tools. One of them is directions of respect. And so everyone on my team has a document where we name our needs for respect in these working relationships. And so we name, for example, I have several chronic pain disabilities, and I'm recovering from brain bleed. I have brain damage from quite a severe brain bleed. And so that affects how I have to work. And especially in the energy spaces, I was pushed out of energy spaces in policy work because my disabilities could not be and would not be accommodated in those workplaces. And so that pushed me as a young Afro-Indigenous woman, disabled woman, queer woman, outside of the industry. I was able to come back, and I was able to do so because I found a language to communicate, if I'm going to contribute, if you are going to benefit from my qualifications that are born from my lived experiences and identities, then I need to be respected here. And so having a directions of respect is something you don't need to wait for someone to tell you to do. It's something that you can include in your introductions. It's something that you can include in your biographies, that you can include in your cover letters and your applications, that these are my identities, these are my circumstances, and this is how I need to be respected in this space. And as we see organizations implement this, we're actually seeing a lot of progress being made because we're proactively mitigating conflict and harm in the workplace that often leads to the kind of responsive work that I'm often brought into in dealing with workplace discrimination, et cetera, especially, again, in the energy sector. So checking out co-management regimes, healing broken connections, Google it, Yukon, Canada, is a great example of innovation that I'm seeing that could be applied to the energy transition. And then bringing that conversation of respect. And sometimes when I don't feel like doing it for myself, like I don't feel like I'm worth it, sometimes I have to reach a little deeper and think, well, if I do this and protect myself and honor myself and everyone that led me to who I am and how I am, if I do that for myself, I'm supporting those minds and spaces and better honoring the needs of respect by others that come after me. And that, to me, sometimes helps me get over that hesitation. So those are my two kind of strategies, and I hope you find some value in that.
Thank you so much for... Especially that piece on proactively naming respect. I think young people, especially young women, we've all faced imposter syndrome, and so I think that is a really tangible piece heading into the next few days as well. And so final question, over to you, Gauri. Also, in this spirit of collaboration, of course you have extensive expertise on leading successful policy frameworks and strategies, and you've talked a bit already about how we need to ensure that the beneficiaries at the community level are considered and policies are intentionally designed to reach them. And we know heading into these next 2 weeks as well, COP28, that partnerships is a critical SDG, and we know how collaboration is going to accelerate the just transition. So similar question over to you. Based on your experience, especially at IRENA as well, designing partnerships and collaboration, how would you suggest we can design these programs and partnerships in a manner that prioritizes women in these communities that you've been talking about who are often the beneficiaries of these policies?
After hearing Larissa, it's a hard act to follow, but let me try and really start with recounting one experience, which pretty much it was a big learning experience for me, and it's how it did help shape my own attitudes and perspectives while getting into policy making. So many years ago, I was managing a very large poverty alleviation program, and that in the initial design phase, it led me to go to a village and interact with some women who who wanted to do goatery. They thought that a group of them would like to get money and go and buy goats from a place quite far. And in my very naive kind of I was quite young at that time, and I thought I knew the whole gamut of what needs to be done for removing poverty. But little did I understand what were the circumstances that these women dealt with on a daily basis. And little did I understand that if I had to be in their place for even 7 days, I probably would not survive and also smile or be happy. So, so I asked them this question about, but why do you want to do goats? Why don't you just get some cows? Because, the program does allow you to make your own choices about what you want to do. So why go with goats? So, two of them said, okay, why don't you come along with us, and took me to their hutment and said, look at my hutment. I mean, she wasn't arrogant, but what she told me was something that has stayed with me for years. And she said, look at where we cook our food. This is the corner in which we cook our food. This is where at night we all sleep. This is where my children study. And in that corner is where I will keep my goat, because in winters they need to keep warm, so I can't keep them outside. And what will I do with a cow? Because that will need so much water, and do you know where I get my water from? And I'd have to, trudge almost like spend 2 hours of my day getting the water for my family and all. How will I manage a cow? And then, it was almost like a light bulb where I realized that who are we to start making choices or, doing the supply-driven policy push on people who understand and who are able to survive in the circumstances that they're in and make rational choices. They don't need people like us to come and tell them what to do. So I think, it's all about giving people respect. I really think that's a very important thing, because if you don't respect the wisdom, the judgment of the people that are leading their lives quite well, thank you, and they don't really need us who think we've studied so much and we can come and really dictate how they need to be looking at their conditions. I think that's a very important understanding that each one of us has to have, that the reason that a lot of them are in the situation that they are, it's because they haven't got the opportunity that you and I have. So it's not about them being, lacking in intelligence or in, not being able to make do with what they have. I think they're doing extremely well. I mean, I have seen women with just about not so much to go back to, but still being happily going on with their life. They don't get into depression or, have these mental issues that how do I go on with my life? I mean, most of them are very robust and are able to face the world in a practical way. What they really need is the opportunity to have their voices heard about how they would want to be a part of this energy transition that we are talking about. And I think that's the kind of narrative building that needs to happen. That's not a narrative that you hear. That's not even going to be a narrative that we'll hear a lot at the COP, because people don't want to talk about it. And you're right, Larissa. It's because it puts you in a zone that's not comfortable. It puts you in a zone that's not, it's not going with the flow. But these conversations need to happen. These conversations, if they don't happen, and you're really then you're behaving like an ostrich, where you think that what you know is what exists, because there's a whole world outside that needs to be looked at and to become a part of this energy transition. And this is not a transition that it's one of the most important transitions that we will see in our lifetime. It's really about how we will consume and produce energy, and how we will protect the planet for our children and the future generations. So it's about all of us getting into this conversation and not letting the narratives being driven by a few. And I also want to point out here that just by itself, the renewable energy industry that I know a lot about is like a startup in some senses. Why? Because till the last decade, everyone thought that there are these upstarts who want to try and change the way the electricity grid will operate, and they've had to struggle. So when you look at the way most of these renewable energy companies have come up, which in solar, by the way, have about 40% women, and I'm not saying the women, all of them are in decision-making positions, but at least there's women in the organization, because they're much more inclusive. And I think we just need to broaden that space, create that space to have more women become a part of it and be part of these conversations, because these conversations are going to be about how you and I will move into the next decade.
What an incredible way to close us off. So thank you so much for bringing so many insightful and creative ideas to help us kind of kickstart this entire summit. So Gauri, thank you so much as well for bringing up these perspectives right now on really focusing on the collaboration and tying it back into Larissa's piece of respect to ensure that we're thinking about those who are most impacted by policies, and designing collaborative partnerships that really center human dignity and respect and acknowledge the exact wisdom and expertise that women in these communities innately hold. So thank you both so much. And for the sake of time, we're going to wrap up here, and our MCs will come back on to tell you all a bit about what's next. If you do have questions for either of our two esteemed speakers, I'm sure you can find them in the networking events that will follow throughout the next few days. And I really hope that these remarks, these really powerful remarks, have primed all of you to open up your critical thinking as you head into collaborations and discussions with each other, and begin to build relationships on this principle of respect and collaboration, thinking about centering one another in our community and in our progress towards a just transition. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you again to both of you for being here and sharing.
Thank you, Grace, Gauri, and Larissa, for such a powerful and enlightening panel. We will now transition to our Student Energy Summit Advisory Board discussion. This session will focus on engaging our advisory board in discussing the interlinkages between the energy transition and the value of the summit to raise awareness, skills, and connections for further action. So now I would like to invite our esteemed guests to please come to the stage. This includes Her Excellency Dr. Nawal Al-Hassani, Permanent Representative of the UAE to IRENA, His Excellency Luis Alfonso de Alba, Ambassador of Mexico to the United Arab Emirates, and UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the 2019 Climate Action Summit. And last but not least, Pasi Amaya Ogala, Vice Chair of IRENA Global Council on SDG 7. Please come to the stage. Thank you. And this session will be moderated by our co-chair, Mira Al-Jalaf. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our advisory board panel today. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, Her Excellency Dr. Nawal Al-Hassani, Permanent Representative of the UAE to IRENA, His Excellency Luis Alfonso de Abla, Mexican Ambassador of the UAE, and Pasi Amio Agola, Vice Chair of IRENA's Global Council of SDG 7. Each of them is a distinguished leader and advocate in the field of sustainable energy and climate action. So we would first like to begin our panel discussion with a question that I invite all three of our distinguished speakers to address. Given your personal experiences in your respective fields, what drew you to be part of our advisory board, and what value do you see in the hosting of this summit this year at the sidelines of COP28?
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you, Mira, for that question. So I'll start right away. Being part of the advisory team was very inspirational for me to see the student energy team being able to come together, to work together, to do some network weaving, to do programming, and to do it in such an organized and elaborate way. It's very rare to see. And for me, it's an honor to be in what we are now calling the largest gathering of students and energy practitioners who are of a young age in Abu Dhabi today, just before COP28. It's very momentous. So for me, from a personal level, it is good to see that we are all here and we managed to be here. The second thing why this is a value is, let me speak from a personal perspective first and then come to all of us. A couple of years ago, I was looking for a university in my country where I could go and study energy and climate policy because the intersection is very important, especially for the transition that we're seeing today. And unfortunately, it was hard to find, right? But then here today, we have lots of students who are studying that. And I think the value of education for shaping, reskilling, upskilling, and relearning some of the things that we need, especially technical expertise among the young people, is critical and crucial and should be prioritized and invested in. And for me, this is the first step to building that generation of young people who will lead us into the future we need, not only today and tomorrow, but 10 years, 50 years from now, so that we have a world to look forward to. So that has been the value in my experience so far. Thanks.
Well, thank you. That was very inspiring. It's very hard to actually build on that. But let me just say that I just wanted to be inspired. I think to stay relevant, to stay, as we heard from His Excellency Suhail in the room just before we came, we just talked about how important it is for us to stay young at heart and our thinking, and for us to be able to do that is we need to maintain that connection with the youth. For me personally, I'm an aunt of so many nieces and nephews, and they are all at an age where they really want to be part of a solution. And I think being part of this council was important for me on a personal level. Professional level, as I'm sure most of you will see in the next few days as you tour the UAE, youth for the UAE is very important. You know, the majority of our population is youth. We have put, as a government and leadership, we have put a lot of emphasis to engage, empower, and ensure that youth have their right place when it comes to making solutions. So for us, for the UAE, youth is, we don't look at them as, you know, just they need to be observers. They're actually part of every decision that we make. They are on boards, they are in, as you heard from Minister Suhail, they are in part of our cabinet. The UAE was the first country to include youth with their official delegation. So youth were not just being part of the delegation as observer, they were actually sitting on the table, because it's very important for them to be, as we keep saying, to be part of the solution. We hear around the world, you know, a lot of talk about activism. Well, activism can be very, very helpful, but actionism is what is needed. Actionism is the solution. And I think platforms like those, engaging the youth in a meaningful manner, is going to be the solution. So why we are hosting this and why it was important for us to make sure that this happens as we celebrate COP, because COP made a promise, and I have no doubt that we are going to deliver on that promise to be the most inclusive COP ever. The UAE is hosting from the presidency point of view as a host country, more than 100 youth delegates to be part of COP. We have been inclusive in all ways to make sure that this happens. So being part of that advisory board, and the reason we are so excited to host this conference just as we start COP tomorrow, can't believe it's happening tomorrow. So we see that a clear synergy. So it is, you know, supporting youth and supporting students, and being part of this is a no-brainer. For me, it just makes a lot of common sense.
Good morning. Being part of the advisory board in my case is something I welcome from the first time you proposed to me, Mira and Benjamin, because I have been working with youth communities for many years, dealing with many issues at the UN, from climate change, obviously, but not only, on human rights, on disarmament, and other issues. And I think youth have made already an incredible contribution because of the creativity, the ideas, the new ideas, and the disruptive capacity that youth have on the agenda. They have been involved, as Dr. Nawal was mentioning, increasingly into national delegations. So they are not only part of the audience in a room, but they are beginning to take part on the decision-making processes. And that's why I welcome very much. And hosting a meetings as big and as important as this one today here in Abu Dhabi, immediately prior to the COP, taking into account that we are in a crisis, and energy is one of the fundamental elements that will make the change if we are successful in not only in COP28, but the years to come, and we can keep alive the aim of maintaining the temperature below 1.5. It's going to be critical because we are in an oil producer country, at the same time a country that has very clearly invested into renewables heavily, and at the same time a country that is willing to help other countries in the world to face the challenge. So we can make of energy one of the most positive inputs at the COP at this critical moment on the climate fight.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and thank you all of you for your great contributions. It was really a pleasure working with you up until the summit, and we're very excited for the next 3 days and definitely COP28. Dr. Nawal, I have a question. As the permanent representative to IRENA, what role does the UAE need to play to push for an accelerated energy transition, in particular in engaging young people?
I think it's important for us, before we address the specific of this question, is to look at the bigger picture. We heard from His Excellency Suhail, and we just heard now from you, Your Excellency, on the focus the UAE has been putting on energy security. The UAE today is the host of the three largest, not of the largest, the three largest and lowest cost solar plants in the world. And that's an indication of how much the UAE has put importance on renewable energy. It is a cornerstone when it comes to our energy strategy and energy policy, but it's also something that we definitely looked at very seriously when we, as a responsible nation, decided that we are going to be extremely active in the global scene when it comes to advocacy for climate action and climate solutions. So renewables has been always on our leadership's agenda, domestically and internationally. IRENA has been always a partner with the UAE. You know, we are a proud host of IRENA here in Masdar City. We work very closely with them on their priorities, but we understand the importance of having IRENA here because of the role that they can play to bridge knowledge, for knowledge transfer, but also for technology transfer, and for mobilizing funding. So since the beginning, you know, we have partnered with IRENA on many initiatives to accelerate renewables around the world, both in developed and developing countries. With IRENA, we have been also advocating the involvement and the engagement view. There's so many initiatives that we did with them together, you know, either on the sidelines of COP, but throughout the work that we have done with IRENA from the very beginning. You know, either in education, in empowerment, in training, you know, in every governing body meetings, we have youth delegations engaging on those meetings, listening, understanding how climate diplomacy is very important. We also, with IRENA, launched in COP26 in Glasgow the Energy Transition Network, and we have done a lot of work since then on that. We also, there was a UAE-led initiative in the UNESCO, which IRENA was one of the enablers for this to happen, is to how culture and education can play a great role in climate action and climate awareness. It has a beautiful name, much more elegant than the way I said it, but that's basically the substance in it. So, meaning what I'm saying is that we understand the importance of energy transition and energy security and the role of renewables in that equation, and we know that we cannot do that in silo. We need to have a partnership, and having IRENA here has provided us with a great platform to partner with international organizations, but also partner with like-minded countries and institutions to ensure that this happens. And for us and for IRENA, the engagement and the involvement of youth has been a pillar an enabler of every strategy and projects that we do. So it's part of the it's part of our mandate, basically, from our leadership, that for us to make a change and to make the change really happen, we need to engage with the youth. Also, it's a very important thing, I believe we heard from previous speakers on how this energy transition is going to create new industries. And providing the right education tools has been extremely important because, you know, the future is now. And for the youth to be involved in the designing future solutions, they need to have the right tools. And this is why, you know, we work with IRENA to incorporate an important skill set that they're going to be part of the education curriculum, not only for the students, but we needed to educate the educators, because that is, in some cases, one of the biggest challenges, is that, you know, the educators are not do not have the same level of awareness that we needed to improve that the youth are equipped with the right tools to be part of a future scale, of a future workforce.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. The UAE and the Irene are definitely pioneering for youth and the energy transition. Your Excellency, I would like to ask you, when discussing the energy transition, is it important to engage all countries regardless of economic levels? What challenges do you see affecting Latin America, and how can the international community best support their transition?
Well, I think the first comment that I would like to make is that there is no one solution that fits all. This is valid globally, but particularly in Latin America. When you talk about Latin America, you have to be aware that it includes countries like mine, Mexico, but also Brazil, which are among the biggest polluters in the world. We are among the 20 largest polluters, with a huge population and economy. And we have big challenges because of the level of industrialization. But at the same time, you need to be aware that not only Mexico and Brazil, but most of the larger Latin American countries also have a poor population, rural areas, people without access to energy, etc. So you need to deal with the two sides of the problem. Getting energy to some people, which is absolutely necessary, it's an obligation. And on the other hand, reducing emission and moving to renewables. But you have to do it, as I mentioned, aware of this dilemma. And then you move down and you see other countries. I will go to the other extreme, which would be particularly the countries in the Caribbean, on which you are talking about very small countries with weak economies, even though some of them have high incomes, but small-scale economies, and are obviously victims of climate change. They have not polluted, they have not caused damage, and they are the ones who get loans at the highest rates worldwide, or even denial of credits to be able to invest on renewables. So this is the kind of contradictions we need to be aware. The second contradiction or particularity that the region has to face is that there are some countries, some areas on which natural renewables are abundant. So take the example of Uruguay or Costa Rica. You cannot ask them to triple the renewables in the coming years, because they have all done it. They have already gone to 90, 100% almost of renewables, while other countries are still very much dependent even on carbon. So these nuances need to be taken. How the international community can help? I would say the first recipe, and we have heard quite a lot of comments in that sense this morning here, is it was referred as respect to the peoples. And I would say taking into account their own priorities, their own views, their own solutions, and getting to those communities with the elements they are missing. In some cases, we are talking about financial resources, which are not sufficient. In some other cases, technology that is absent, which is not available for them. So making the solutions fit the needs of the people, being aware that we are dealing with developed and developing circumstances, and being very respectful also, and that would be my last point of traditions and ways of looking in how to deal with issues. And I'm referring particularly to indigenous peoples, and I want to underline peoples, not communities. Indigenous peoples, they do have the right of self-determination fully recognized by the United Nations, and they have the right to define their own programs, their own priorities, their own way of doing. By the way, they have been living in a much more sustainable way than most other communities.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing your comment. Pasi, I have a question for you. As the Vice Chair of the IRENA's Global Council on SDG 7, what are the major challenges arising from promoting meaningful youth engagement in the energy transition, and what measures need to be taken to change the way that youth are involved in policy making?
Great. There are a couple of challenges. I wish it was the opposite. I always like to speak in the positive rather than the negative. You understand why. One is with ourselves as young people. We work in so many silos, working on the same thing in our own groupings and in our own, kind of organizations, constituencies. So you find the student energy, but then there's SDG 7 youth constituency, and there's Yongo. You understand. So there's so many different outfits of young organizations and doing the same thing, and being able to pull together towards a common purpose is a strength. So I think there's still a loose link and a loose nut that we still need to screw together as young people that will then give us that force and that youth power that we really need collectively together to push forward and then achieve what we need to achieve. And I think we've been doing that slowly, but we haven't gotten there. So for example, student energy being able to bring all that organizations together towards this summit is a plus. The IRENA Global Council on Enabling Youth Action on SDG 7 is another plus. Why? Because it allowed us to bring these representatives from the youth bodies working on energy and SDG 7 together. So that was the first step, so that we are really moving the force together. So we have representation from like African youth, the Green Africa Youth Organization. We have the European Youth Energy Association. We have TACA Youth that are members of the council. So what that allows us to do is, as we are thinking about the different just energy transition issues at the local level, we're also able to come and think about it at a holistic global level, so that we're not leaving any region behind and we're not leaving any youth voices behind. But of course, the other challenge is it's not fully representative, right? So that is one or two challenges in one. The second challenge is, for a couple of years, youth have had to really prove themselves to so many people to be able to receive the investments that they need to push forward. And there are various challenges. Most of the time you'll always hear the challenge is funding, funding, funding. That's one. There are other challenges that are systemic, and they come with the ability of being able to get a license, for example, as a youth or a young company that's working on promoting renewables in a particular region, and it becomes very cumbersome for you to be able to go through that entire process, provide the documentation you need for you to get a simple license to be a young entrepreneur in renewables, or even to be a young innovator to innovate and then get your innovation that's helping to improve the energy transition out there. We've seen this, and it remains a challenge. So we need to bridge that gap between how do we loosen these barriers for young people to be able to be active players in the scene. So that's another challenge that we've seen. The third challenge, and it's the last one, but as the excellencies on the panel with me have mentioned, we're starting to get there. And I love the example of the UAE, for example. I just came from the Dubai Futures Forum, and it was very nice to hear it constantly being said that 70% of UAE's negotiators for COP28 are under 35. I think that deserves a round of applause. Because so many countries are yet to get there, Last year we had a profound achievement for young people, where the COP27 agreement acknowledged that young people were key stakeholders in contributing to climate action. That was step one. It's a commitment. They've agreed, they've acknowledged, but they're moving from saying and committing that they are needs to be seen with action. Let young people be there. Let us be the policymakers, be the innovators, be the entrepreneurs, be the educators that Dr. Nawal was talking about, and be provided the necessary skills, knowledge, mentorship, and investment to be able to get there. So the challenges are there, but the solutions are there. We just need to be fully committed and intentional about solving those challenges and removing those barriers. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pasi. Thank you for your inspiring words. I think we definitely, as youth, need to collaborate more in order to find better solutions and kind of reach for our voices to be heard. I would like to ask one final question. So going into the summit, what words of advice would you give participants to make the best of their experience?
Do you want me to start?
For sure, go ahead.
Okay, great, because everybody looked at me, so I was like, okay, let's do this. My advice to you all now, look at you. Take advantage of everybody that is in the room today. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Speak to one another, share what you're doing, connect with each other on LinkedIn, be there for one another. That is the collaborative force and the network weaving that I was talking about. Each and every single person in the room is doing something incredible based on some of the bios that I've seen and some of the emails and messages that I've been receiving. And I think it's only important that you share it with yourself so that you're also inspiring one another to start something that you're not doing in your own countries or in your own areas of influence or interest. So that's one. Take advantage of all the amazing sessions that have been prepared. Do not miss them. Go in, listen to the panels, participate, ask questions. If there's something you are in doubt with, that is the opportunity to seize, because we don't have access every month, every quarter. We only have it once a year. So you want to really fully participate and be involved. Number 3, share. The power of social media is so incredible. We are privileged to be in this room today, but there's so many millions of youth that would have loved to be here, but they're not here. But what you can do is you can say, today we had a panel and these were the key insights that we got from there. What you're doing is you're educating and you're also allowing those who are not in the room today to be part of the conversation. So let's not forget our peers that are not here. And then number four, get as many contacts, get as many collaborations as you can, share your work, but also ensure that you're connecting beyond the CES today. That would be my major advice to you all as you're here. Thanks.
So just to build on this amazing piece of advice, I think on the same line, I believe that you are not too young to unite, act, and deliver climate solutions and be part of the climate action. We have an amazing platform. You have this forum here, you have COP28 just around the corner, and COP28 has offered this free platforms for everybody to engage and have a voice. So use your voice, use your platforms, be vocal and be part of the solution. And I'm going to repeat something that's very important. Activism can be helpful, but actionism is what we all need. We need action. And COP28 have promised that's going to be the COP of action, so be part of this action. In the green zone, you are going to go now and you will find for the first time amazing platforms that is focused on art, on culture, on sciences, and we need all that. We need all those platforms, and we need to engage in dialogues in all those areas, because for us to achieve a proper energy transition and climate action, we need to engage on all those dialogues. So be part of the solution and, take advantage and just enjoy it, enjoy the ride.
I'm going to be a little less positive because I want to warn you. I've been part of multilateral process for more than 40 years, and I can tell you the COPs are probably the worst. So be patient. Take into account that we need agreement by consensus of 195 countries, and this is not an easy task. So don't get desperate. That would be my first advice. Patience. And second, be very clear that there is no right and wrong, white or black. Grays are the ones that are going to help us to find the solution. because we are talking about common solutions for humanity. So there is no one person who has all the solutions. There is no one option that is the only possible one. There are many options, and this is where you can play, I think, the most important role because of the creativity that you can have. Brainstorm, open your imagination and try to put ideas on how things may go well. It may be, in some cases, how to get an understanding between two countries who have different positions. It may be on a solution, how to address a question. It may be the possibility of questioning some of the basics, and I will give you one basic. Everybody is talking about renewables. Let's move to renewables. It is obviously true, it is valid, but question, there are some people which are making business out of renewable, and I would say not in a very good positive sense. They are abusing in some cases. They are abusing of taxation, there are abuses of permits, so there is no clear, pure idea or concept of activity. You can question anything, and this is one of the roles. And the last point, a very practical one, try to bridge between the green and the blue zone as much as possible. Many youth are going to be able to get into the blue zone because they are part of delegations. In the case of Mexico, we have 10 youth diplomats. We call it ambassadors, 10 youth ambassadors, which have been accredited as part of the Mexican delegation, and many other countries are doing the same. So interact with them, not to have these two totally parallel conversations from the non-governmental and the governmental part. And be aware, we have not talked much today about the role of the private sector and the role of other actors, not only governments in general, but local governments, parliamentarians, unions, other constituencies. You can also bridge differences between the perception of these different constituencies.
Thank you so much all for your advice. You have definitely been advising me and Benji for almost over a year, and we have this great event, so I assure you all to listen to our great panelists' advice. And we will close our panel, and thank you for our panelists for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening.
Well, now we transition to the last panel before lunch, the Changemakers panel. What possibilities are in store for you? Through sharing the stories of previous participants of SES that have gone on to execute their own visions for the future of energy, we hope that this panel discussion will inspire attendees to take action on the knowledge gained and connection made at SES. Moderating this panel is Shakiti Ramkumar, Senior Director of Policy and Communications at Student Energy, who was speaking to Serena Eve Mendizabal, founding member and co-chair of 7gen 2022, Chibona Igbona, co-founder and CEO of Kiro Energy Limited, Priya Yadav, co-founder of Organic for Climate, Shalidika Ghosh, co-founder and CEO of Mission Zero Technologies.
Okay, so before we continue with the next panel, we'd just like to make a few announcements regarding lunch and also the Innovation Jam programming today. So team leads, please choose a time and place to meet with delegates interested in your idea and post these meetup details in your social media group on Hoover. Lunch is a great time to do this, or any time in between sessions. If you're a team lead and you haven't yet created a social group for your idea on Hoover, please do so immediately so delegates will have enough time to learn about your team before deciding which one to join. Further information on the Hoover social groups, meeting points, and team sign-up can be found in the announcement that you received this morning. Now, following our next session will be lunch. So lunch will be served at the Torch Club on top of the East Dining Hall D2 for delegates arriving from Rotana Yes. We'll also have lunch outside here, the Red Theater in the Arts Center lobby, and the East Plaza for delegates arriving from Radisson Blu, and at the Conference Center for delegates arriving from Le Meridien. Lunch will only run for about an hour, so please make sure you're back to the venue by 12:50. A few other reminders, please, if you have not yet picked up your badge, remember to do so. And yes, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Great. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're really excited about this panel that we have, and we hope you are too. But first, my name is Shakti Ramkumar. I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Communications at Student Energy. I've been with the organization for about 5 years, and this is my second Student Energy Summit. I'm so excited to be here and to meet so many of you all already, and I really look forward to hopefully meeting many more of you over the next couple of days. So this panel is called the Changemakers Panel. This is a long-time tradition of the Student Energy Summit and something we're really excited to bring to you on the very first day of CES because we think it just sets the stage for what's to come and kind of hopefully gets you jazzed up for the next couple of days. So I'll let each of our speakers introduce themselves in a second, but first I just want to share a little bit about why we do the Changemakers Panel. So the Changemakers Panel started as a tradition at CES because we realized as soon as people leave the Student Energy Summit, they are already creating incredible impact out in the world. And we see that. We see that in our alumni. So we thought, okay, let's bring them back and share what they've been up to since they were all at CES to show delegates kind of a little variety of the impacts you could create too after you leave the Student Energy Summit. So that's one of the reasons we host the Changemakers Panel, is to connect the dots from what happens after we leave the short time that we have together and we all go back to our own lives, connect the dots to the impacts you can be making once you leave the summit. And the second reason we have the Changemakers Panel is to show you the diversity of pathways and choices that are available to all of us as we work towards a collective, just energy transition. It's really an all-hands-on-deck mission, and I think once you hear the speakers speak today, you'll see just how many different ways we can approach this collective mission that we all have. And finally, the reason we have this Changemakers Panel is to really put a spotlight on the young people who were sitting in your seats just a little while ago, and to show you where they've all gone since CES. So without further ado, we'll get started with some introductions. Maybe we'll start at that end actually with Shill. I'll have each of our changemakers share their names, who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, and how they first got connected with Student Energy. So Shill, over to you first.
It's on now. Great. Thank you, Shakti, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. I know you're all excited for lunch, but we're also interesting, I hope, to you. I'm Shill. I'm an alumni of the program. I was involved in organizing the 2019 edition of SES in London. So hands up if you attended that. If you had a good time, it was my teammates who did a great job. If you didn't have a good time, it's my fault. But what I do now is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a co-founder of a climate startup developing direct air capture technology for a more sustainable approach to carbon removal that involves all sorts of communities and parts of the world. And so I've been doing that for about 4 years since I completed my studies in chemical engineering. And so that's my background here. Over to Chibuna.
Ndewonu, great people. Good day, everyone from all over the world. My name is Chibuna, and I first got in contact with Student Energy from the Arena Youth Forum in 2020, the first Arena Youth Forum in 2020. This would actually be my second time here at New York University, Abu Dhabi. And I remember meeting so many delegates from all over the world and representing my country, Nigeria, at that summit. And then I got in contact with Helen, and from there I got to work on the Global Youth Energy Outlook as the regional coordinator for Sub-Saharan Africa on that project, working alongside other amazing 11 regional coordinators from all over the world. The project really inspired me to dig deeper into the issues of energy poverty and lack of access to energy in Africa. And in addition to that, I also worked at the COP26 with Student Energy to deliver the Global Youth Energy Outlook project. And now I'm currently co-founder and chief executive officer at Kiru Energy Limited. Kiru is a clean tech company providing smart clean energy solutions for households and businesses in Africa. And it's an honor to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Hello. Namaste everyone. So this is Priya Yadav from India. I am from a small village based in Haryana in India. I got introduced to climate change through Student Energy Program, Global Youth Energy Outlook Program. I was the country ambassador from India back then. I started this whole journey in 2021. After that, I founded my own organization, Organic for Climate, which is a youth-led organization focused on sustainable food system and regenerative agriculture, biochar farming, and all that. We have programs throughout India, where we advocate all the sustainable food system and agriculture among youth and farmers and few nations from the global south. Today, I hold the forts of carbon removal team at UN High-Level Climate Champions. I work with Dr. Mahmood and H.E. Razan in helping them support the delivery of CDR ecosystem and amplifying the momentum for our two major campaigns, Race to Zero and Race to Resilience. I work to rally for the efforts of non-state actors by identifying various stakeholders and initiatives in the CDR ecosystem and amplifying their efforts. Yeah, I look forward to meeting you all, and I'm also joining the COP, so feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Scano, Srinani Gawasen, Gagahono Kwanzo Dan, Ochinike Shout Dan. Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Srina Mandisabal. I'm Cayuga Wolf Clan from 6 Nations of the Grand River Territory on Turtle Island, so anyone who was in Programs Day yesterday knows what Turtle Island was. I'm also Panamanian from down south. I am really excited to be here today, and I'm a little bit at awe right now to be on this stage right now, so thank you so much. But yes, my community, I come from the largest First Nation in Canada with about a 28,000 people population. We're an hour south of Toronto. I am the Just Transition Lead at Sacred Earth Solar, and we focus on empowering frontline Indigenous communities on the front lines of land protection, cultural revitalization, and land protection with climate solutions and healing justice. So recently, we actually had a really fun couple of months, and we just launched an 180-page Just Transition Guide to highlight Indigenous pathways towards resiliency in the climate crisis. Also, I just put up a solar PV system for an accessible healing lodge in my community that will support persons with disabilities to be able to access Sweat Lodge. Yeah, I've been involved with student energy for a while, and it's really exciting to be here.
I'm trying to think now. Back in university, I co-founded the Student Energy Western University chapter alongside events and mentorship manager Grace Young. Our chapter then went to the Student Energy Fellowship. We were CES 2019 delegates in England, so had a great time. And from there, though, one of the most important aspects of my journey with Student Energy has been 7Gen. And I was lucky enough in, I think, 2020 to be part of the organizing committee for the 7Gen Summit. And with COVID, that didn't happen necessarily, so it took a couple years, but we ended up creating something even greater, the 7Gen Indigenous Youth Energy Council. And from there, we created Imagination, an Indigenous youth project development program for clean energy projects to happen in communities, as well as the many other things we do, such as bringing a delegation to CES and COP right now. So it's been a great journey. I'm currently the 7Gen co-chair, so I've been moved up into the leadership and really helping, working with Danny and Nate to bring our visions to life. I guess I'll lastly say that I am the newest board of directors for Student Energy, so I'm really excited to be part of the Student Energy vision going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your wonderful introductions. And for the audience members, I really hope it shows you just how many ways you can engage with Student Energy beyond your time at the summit and really leverage this global network and all of our programs offerings to make the impact you want to make. So thank you so much for all of your introductions. So all of you have had a long history with Student Energy, but what from your time at Student Energy would you say has helped you the most in the work that you're doing today? And maybe we'll switch up the order here a little bit and start with Chibuna. What would you say has helped you the most from your involvement with Student Energy?
Thank you very much for the question. So particularly with Global Youth Energy Outlook project, I really enjoyed the project because basically it was like a seed. It was an idea that started off from Helen, and before anyone knew, it became like a very global project. And it was so powerful to see how we could start from just a concept and develop it into something tangible. And we took over 18 months to come up with that project. It was really intense. I could also remember when I had to, scramble for electricity while also executing the project. So it really taught me that no matter the challenges you face, you have to execute that project because it's important for not just you, but for the whole of Africa and the world at large. So working with Student Energy has helped me to gain resilience on global projects and also expand my horizon to see the world from different points of view. Working with other regional coordinators from different parts of the world also created that multicultural insight into how to communicate and how to collaborate across the world. So yeah, Student Energy makes you a global citizen. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. And maybe we'll go to Priya next. What would you say has helped you the most in the work you're doing today?
Well, when I started my journey at Student Energy, I was doing my master's in physics, so I had the basic understanding of energy system, but what I needed back then was to pivot my understanding towards understanding the complexities of climate change and its interconnected nature. So through Student Energy, I got to know that I had the access to resources, I had the access to networks who can help me understand the trends of the industry and where I would like to align, where I would like to have myself, just to form a vision of my career in the next 4 to 5 years. So Student Energy chapter really helped me in doing that. And also, it helped me in learning what is the importance of having the diversity in our programs. It helped me understand the relevance of common but differentiated approach, which we follow through our work in UN High-Level Climate Champions at OFC. Thank you.
Awesome, I love that. Serena, maybe over to you next.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I come from the largest First Nation in Canada. We also hold the largest clean energy portfolio of any First Nation with over 1,000 megawatts of clean energy. And so I got actually involved with clean energy in 2017, 2018, working at the Development Corporation, who's holding that portfolio, and I worked in community engagement. So anyone who's worked in community engagement on large-scale utility projects knows it's pretty rough. And I was probably the only youth in a community of 28,000 people doing this work, and it felt extremely lonely, especially when you're getting called different things, people don't really understand. It's a hard job, and anyone who does it, I give kudos to you. With that being said, though, I went to 7gen in 2019, the first Indigenous Youth Energy Summit. And that was completely life-changing because it gave me the community I needed to be able to do this work. And when I think about climate action and I think about climate change, we need community because we need to we need to have connection at the forefront. We as Indigenous peoples believe in interconnection with us, the lands, each other, ourselves, right? And so why aren't we bringing that into our climate work? So with that, what I've gained from being in my student energy experience is the community to be able to do the projects, to do the work that I want to, and to feel that support. I want to give a shout out to the Danny, Nate, Keenan, Grace, all these amazing people who are here today and the people who have uplifted me through this work. I wouldn't be here without you. And so I think it's just really important to talk about that, and to talk about kinship when it comes to this work, because how many people even talk to their neighbors, right? And so basic relationship skills that we should be holding with each other, we have been disconnected from. And then we're supposed to make these high-level decisions that are going to impact us and future generations, ones that really are focused on care for each other, but we're unable to have just basic conversations. And so for me, the community and the family that we created at 7gen has been life-changing because I always know I have a support system to be able to put this work forth. It is going to be very trying times going forward, and we need people and family to lean on during this, right? Because we also need joy, and joy comes from relationships. And what is all this work for? It's to be healthy. It's for our communities to be healthy. It's for laughter. It's for love. And so I just am really grateful for my experience with Student Energy that I found my family at 7gen. Thank you.
And over to you, Phil.
Bit hard to follow up from that, but I guess from my side, the thing I took from Student Energy and the people I met here is something I hope will also resonate a lot with all of you, in that probably quite a few of you are going to be coming to these conferences not exactly sure in what way you want to be a part of the just energy transition, and that's both in the short term, what you do in the next year or two, what you do 5, 10 years from now, and then 20 years from now as well. Because there's so many different roles we can all play in the ecosystem at different parts of our lives and careers. And part of the thing that I gained a lot of insight from meeting the people in and around Student Energy was which things resonate with me the most at this stage of my personal and professional lives, and which things I feel I can tackle more in further along in my career. For example, in the 2019 SES Summit, I think one of the change makers was Emma Wisner, who is like a member of parliament, and she was in her early 20s. And that was really inspiring to see that someone so young is able to make a difference in policy matters. And I was much older than that, I was still a student. And I thought, okay, that's something I would like to be able to do, but do I feel comfortable and confident that I can add value in that capacity at this stage? Or do I think I can do that better maybe in 10 years from now when I've got other experiences under my belt? That kind of ability to observe the different trajectories that people are on around me at Student Energy, and then use that information to shape both what I am interested in doing, but also identifying what I don't feel as comfortable doing, was really instrumental in figuring out what I'm doing. So for example, in my perspective, I was a student at the time when I helped organize the 2019 summit. After that, I hadn't actually thought about being an entrepreneur, but through the various change makers and other young business people that I met at the conference, that really motivated me to consider it further. But I don't plan to be doing this for 15, 20 years further. I would like to make a change in other areas that are important, like policy or decision-making or empowerment or education. Because we're going to be, and you are all going to be exposed to all of those different ways to make change throughout these 3 days in different breakout sessions and things. And it's going to be really important that you listen to all of that, experience it, and then understand for yourself with your peers which areas you feel you can contribute most to, because that's how we can all collaborate effectively together. So that was my key learning from the Student Energy journey.
Great, thank you, Shil. Thank you, everyone. So we've all heard about a little bit about your experience, and you're all young people trying to make a big difference in the world of energy, climate change, and let's get real for a second. It's not easy. It's very difficult. There's a lot of inertia in the current system that we have, and in trying to change it, we will face a lot of obstacles. And I think it's really powerful to hear what those challenges are. I think often young people are told, oh, you know, when you grow up, you'll be doing all these projects, you'll be taking leadership. But from our experience at Student Energy, we've seen that young people are not waiting. They're taking leadership right now. They're already taking on the difficult projects. They're already taking on the big, complex challenges. And I think it's really powerful to hear about what those challenges are. So I'll pose this question to Serena, just because you've worked on so many diverse projects over a relatively short period of time. You take on a lot. What are some of the challenges that you face in the work that you do, and how have you found solutions to them? And then I'll invite the panelists to jump in as well if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Shakti. Yes, as I mentioned earlier too, I worked in community engagement, so it's quite challenging. But going forth and realizing my community's potential to be leaders in clean energy, it really has led me on a journey to explore further with the challenges that I've been faced. And so with this being said, I do feel like I live in two worlds. I work in clean energy, I do national work, different things like that. But then I'm also, as you see today, I'm a traditional Haudenosaunee woman. I'm a person of the Longhouse. I have a hereditary system that governs me. And there's been a large disconnect in my community. We are the largest First Nation. I have a privilege to come from a community who is leading in that transition, so I also have the privilege to know the gaps at this point. And with our traditional leadership and our band council that was an Indian Act leadership, there's been quite division. And this has been seen among even the projects I've worked in myself. And so I think that's been a really big disconnect for me, is how to bring those two worlds together, how to make sure that this knowledge, these spaces are accessible to community members, to our elders, to our youth, right? As I said, I was the only young person working in my community. And so, yeah, I just want to bring up an example. We're having a 250 megawatt energy storage project come into our community, which we need energy storage. We need to take the surplus, but it's not being communicated to my community. And our provincial government and the federal government came to our community and didn't even invite members, our elders. They were actually locked out of the announcement itself. And so me, being someone who is pushing forward these kinds of solutions, I also am aware that that was a major gap and that community needs to be at the center of these solutions. And so that's kind of what's led me on this journey since working on a transmission line where community protested to now, and making sure, like, how do I make this accessible? Because there's a disconnect, right? These spaces aren't being translated into communities who are on the front lines of change. And so I decided I have to be that champion for myself, and I have to bring this knowledge and make those bridges and reimagine a future where traditional people, elders, youth are the ones doing these kinds of projects. So I decided one day I'm gonna, with all the training Student Energy and Indigenous Clean Energy have given me in that capacity I've built, I'm gonna go into my hereditary governance, and I'm gonna do a project, and I'm gonna show them, even if it's small scale, that we can make a change and we can have that leadership. So with my ceremonial longhouse, I'll be doing a 20 kilowatt solar microgrid project, as well as an energy efficient upgrade and food security build. I wanna show them that they have the potential to be able to put forth these solutions, right? I don't want this to be something that they can't reach. I wanna make sure it's accessible, because that is the big gap, right? We see our communities facing the impacts. They're at the brunt of the impacts. And so they also need to be the ones putting forth those solutions, and not just in certain structures that we've been given, but all community members, right? That's what a just transition is having communities at the forefront of these solutions and all communities being involved from the start, design to finish. And so I think it's really, you gotta be that leader yourself, and you gotta find those gaps and you gotta fill them, because that's the only way we're gonna put forth just transition.
Great, thank you, Serena. And I think what really stood out to me from what you said is that young people are not satisfied with just a clean energy transition. We want it to be a just transition, where communities are at the forefront and we're actively addressing the harms that have been perpetrated in the current system. I'll turn it over to our speakers to respond or add on if you'd like to. I saw Shil. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, I really agree with all of that. I was going to add on a kind of supplementary perspective as well, in terms of problems that we've faced and also ways we find solutions. In And this hopefully is going to be something you can keep in mind as you take part in Innovation Jam later on in this conference as well. When you're someone coming up with solutions, you're always looking at it from the perspective of the knowledge that you have and the expertise that you have. And so something can seem like a good solution there, but it's all dependent on how it's viewed and received by the audience you're preparing the solution for and working on something for. And that's whether you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you're trying to promote a movement or create an educational program, all of those situations. One experience I can maybe call upon specifically is in my space, developing a carbon removal technology with a team of young founders who are all having their first jobs being a startup founder, trying to get taken seriously by energy companies, for example, when we don't have decades of industry experience under our belt, means that all we have is one, the credibility of what we're proposing, but two, the ability to put ourselves in their shoes and make it an incentive for them to pay attention and take notice for things. And that's something that's a really important way that helps solve a lot of problems in terms of getting people to listen to you. Something that was echoed by many of the speakers this morning was not just raising our voices when we have ideas or questions, but giving space to listen to the answers that we hear. And the thing that I want to add on to that as a solution is also thinking proactively about what kinds of answers might you hear back and preparing for those answers, understanding what they mean for your assumptions and your ideas, whatever you'd like to do. Because the best ideas often don't get implemented because that wasn't taken into account. So that's going to be really important, and that's something I hope you all can also even start practicing during the Innovation Jam over the next couple of days when you think of ideas. I already saw there's a few on the Hoover that have got teams assembled. Excellent stuff. Looking forward to that. So those are my thoughts.
Excellent. Thank you, Shil. Priya, go ahead.
I am very passionate about sustainable development and co-benefit of climate action pathways. I come from a farming community, and Organic for Climate works for the farming community. So the major problem we had is to deal with the farmers who are more concerned about putting food on their plates than the climate change. They were having severe health issues. So what we did is introduce them to the sustainable development and how these solutions like organic farming, zero budget natural farming, biochar farming, all this can help them have a sustainable income as well as resilience in the problems they were having. So that was the major problem I had when I was working at the OFC. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Tribuna, anything to add?
No for now.
All right. Great. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I want to reiterate, I think it is so important to talk about these challenges because you're all in the midst of solving them, you're about to solve them, and what a great gift that is to folks who will encounter them soon and can learn from your wisdom. So we're almost near the end of our panel, believe it or not, and we really want to make this actionable for our delegates. So the final question I'll ask to all of you is, what advice would you like to give to the delegates in the room for how they can make the most of these next few days that we have together? Maybe we will start with Tribuna.
Okay, so I intentionally skipped the other question in order to make time for what I'm about to share. This is the most important thing I really wanted to share with everyone here from my own journey. So as a change maker, I've distilled some insights from my journey and put them together into a 6C framework. So the letter C and 6 of them. So the first one is curiosity. So my journey in sustainable energy really started when I first gained admission into the university. I gained admission as a chemical engineering student, and my idea was to help solve climate change, right? But when I got there, it was just mostly about, the chemical industry, mathematics, and I didn't really find the language I was seeking to hear, which is climate change, sustainable energy. So I started seeking out answers for myself by attending conferences, and so I kept following that curiosity until it led me to attend over 3 conferences in sustainable energy across Nigeria. And then from there, after about 3 years of attending those conferences, I decided that I wanted to do something with this knowledge I had gathered over the years. So that curiosity actually started me on that path. So the second thing is courage. So courage is required for you to do anything great. And all of us here today are all called to do something great from wherever we are, no matter how small it is, because it matters at the end. Each of our actions, they form, in the grand scheme of things, they really matter so well. Yeah, so we need courage in order to implement new ideas. We need courage in order to pursue just and equitable policies, because actually you are fighting against many odds, right? So you need a lot of courage to withstand those odds and challenges that come. The third one is contribution. So you need to ask yourself, how am I positioned to better contribute to the world? So for myself, I looked at myself and said, okay, I'm interested in ideas and executing them, so I could better contribute to the world through initiating projects, starting companies, and all that. So ask yourself, where best can I contribute, and then focus on that. And then the fourth one would be consistency. So that I'm sitting on this panel today, it's a huge privilege, and I'm very humble and grateful for it. It's just a testament to consistency. There are many nights, many hard nights, many hard days. However, with consistency, you can really achieve anything, and you keep getting better and better with consistency. And then the fifth one is community. So the student energy community, because you can't do it alone. You need mentors, you need comrades who will help you on the journey. You also need mentees who you can pass down your wisdom and your knowledge down to. So it all forms the community. So staying connected in that community is really important. And then finally is change, being open to change as yourself, because as you keep creating change, you will encounter different phases and different transitions. So you need to be open to those transitions and the changes that come with it, and then be open to accept them and adapt to them. So be agile, and with that you can become a great change maker. Thank you.
Awesome. The 6 C's. I love that. If you forget what they are, come find Chibuna. He'll tell you. I'll turn it over to maybe Priya next. Share any pieces of advice you would like to give to your delegates?
I'll add to her. I'll add to him. So we keep on saying that this youth has lack of energy. They don't have energy. I think they have so much energy. They have curiosity, gratefulness, optimism. I have been observing this for the last one day, and they have so many perspectives. So what they need is a directive where they can project all this energy towards a vision, where they can form their own goals, they can find their own thing, where they can work towards. Just explore, keep talking to people, reach out to them, use social media. Whatever I have been doing this past 2 years, it is all because of the social media. I have reached out to people, I have connected with them, I have tried talking about myself, I've tried sharing my stories. So just do that. I think that's enough for you to get you to your own goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Priya. Over to you, Shil. Any pieces of advice for our delegates?
Yeah, I have 2 pieces of advice. The first one, building specifically on one of Chibuna's letter C's, the community one, thinking about how you build your community over the next couple of days and beyond, from 2 perspectives. One is, of course, from trying to network with people who are from the same part of the world as you, because you can pool your connections and resources together, whether you're contacts or collaborators, or access to funding, even when you want to go and make change in a certain way. But the second is also pooling and networking with other students and delegates who are working on the same ideas as you in other parts of the world that you can get learnings from and also share. It's important to bear in mind, to be most effective, you need to be able to communicate what you can help other people with, not just how they can help you, right? Because then it's collaborative in that way. So that's something to really think about, how you feel you can help others at this conference when you meet them, so that they understand how to work together. The second piece of advice was a lighter one. For those of you who are using the conference app a lot, please reconsider using polls so much. They just keep sending notifications. There are better ways and more effective ways to network and engage, like hanging out over lunch after this. So, just a thought.
Thank you, Shil. And over to you, Serena.
So an elder, Terry Lynn Brandt, she's a traditional Haudenosaunee seed keeper from my community, once told me, your gift is your passion, and your passion is your gift. And so I want all of you to really think on that each and every single one of you have a gift that you were given. And you have to nourish that gift. You have to recognize it, and you have to share it. And so I really hope over these next couple of days you really reflect on what makes you special. And that I know it's really hard to think about ourselves like that, but it's going to make sure you gain that confidence to be able to go forth and build the connections you want, build the community you want, build the projects you're doing, right? In CES 2019, I don't really know if I knew what my gift was. I knew I just wanted my community to be healthy. So I went from there, and I further explored what that could possibly look like. And I found my gift is that connection, is working with my community, is being a Haudenosaunee woman and a young person who is passionate about these topics. I think also the work doesn't end after CES 2023, and that gift is going to stay with you. And so you need, as I said, nourish it going forth. And you can do that through the many programs, opportunities, and different things like that Student Energy has created. And so I really think that, to me, and I know it's probably a little abstract for some of you, but it's in here, it's your spirit, and you really need to focus on that. And there's a reason why each and every single one of you came here today, right? And it's that passion that is underlying within this space and within yourself. So recognize it, nourish it, and share it with the world. And I just love what everyone said, because community's at the forefront, right? And find your people who will also nourish your gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, and thank you so much to our change makers. I really hope you take these pieces of advice to heart, because they can make your experience here and beyond so special. And I think especially, this all really what stands out to me is how differently young people are doing things. And the way we do things does matter in a space that's often been marked by exclusivity and maybe too much competition. Young people are thinking about, how do I help other young people with me? How do I bring them up with me? So I think that's been really great to hear from all of your perspectives. So that brings us to the end of the Changemakers panel. I hope you'll all get a chance to connect with the Changemakers, and I really hope in 2025 we'll see some of you in this room up here on stage for the next Changemakers panel. We would love to see what kind of amazing things you go on to do after CES. As we close out the panel, I'll just tell y'all where lunch is going to be. It's right after this. And lunch is organized by where your hotel is. So all your hotel groups will have a different spot for lunch. So if you're staying at the Brotana Yas Hotel, please head to the Torch Club for lunch. I believe it's upstairs from the dining hall. If you're staying at Le Méridien, the Conference Center, for lunch. And if you are staying at the Radisson Blu, please head to the Arts Center and East Plaza for lunch. That is all. Thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you all here right after lunch.